What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, Eugene and I, we actually have it's our last podcast that we had in the old room that we haven't posted for whatever reason, and we're posting it today. It's a good podcast. It's basically a reflection. I reread some books, not all books, but some books. And one of the books that I was rereading earlier later last year, was the book War by Robert Greene. It's a good book. I like a lot of Robert Greene's books. I've read 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, all those, and they're really good books. They're usually huge books. I mean, they're dense books, but there's a lot of really useful takeaways from them. At least there are for me. And so, if you were to go to my house and see my book, it's like earmarked, and there's the writing all through it and everything else. But I share some different ideas from the book that I found useful for me personally, and I'm sharing them with you guys as well. So hopefully you can get some takeaways from it. And again, if you enjoy the book, you can go grab it yourself and give it a read, or there's an Audible version. Although I found this because I listened to the audio version, and I've done the book version, and I keep finding this to be true. I like audiobooks, but I don't get as much from them as I do when I'm reading. Because when I read and I then highlight and I write down notes in the book and everything else, I really have a lot more. I retain it so much more. Whereas with audio, it's like I'll drive and I'm listening. Well, that's kind of interesting, and then I don't really get everything from it. And so I tend to, again, I'm not saying that everybody's this way. I do have some lectures that I listen to, but again, I find that if I listen to the lecture or the audiobook and I'm like 100% in attention. I remember there was a really good lecture years ago. If you guys are on Audible, if you're a history nerd or like military history, there's a great courses lecture on the most decisive battles in history by a guy named Professor Aldrete, Aldrete, I think is it. I think he's up in Wisconsin or something, but really fascinating thing, and really goes into a lot of nuanced detail about these different battles and stuff. And I remember I was a total geek. I remember there was he talked about the second siege of Vienna, which was I think it was 1580s or 1680s, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited, this is a good one. And so I would sit there on my couch just listening to it, and I remember all kinds of stuff from that thing. Even I'm not gonna get into this, we're not a history podcast, but it's a really good lecture series if you want to check it out. But yeah, I like to listen to them that way. But anyway, going back to it, that's what the podcast is about. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Hope you get something from it. As always, guys, thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Chewjitsu. You save 15% on the order. And again, I encourage you guys, if you have listened to it and you've said, man, I wonder if that stuff's got anything to it. Because that was me for a long time. I would hear the commercials for CBD on podcasts, and I would see them online, and I was like, I'm not taking that stuff. And then I started taking it. My story goes like this. One of my students gave me some CBD balm, and I had a muscle rub or muscle pain that was just flaring up constantly. I took the muscle rub, and the damn thing went away. It was like magic. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Then I was like, well, I got to try this stuff out. So I went up there and started using CBD, and again, it was really crazy, the effects that I felt from it personally, especially after I got a couple weeks in. And then I found that for me personally, I can't take it earlier in the day because it just mellows me out too much. But at nighttime, perfect. It really does help out a lot for me personally. And again, if you want to check out some of their stuff and see the effect on it that you have, I encourage people just to try a test run. Try it for a month, see what you think. If it works for you, then great. You have a new supplement in your arsenal that can have a lot of cool benefits. If not, then, again, then no big deal. But you can check it out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Also, big thanks to our sponsor, Matt at Epic Roll. He's got a lot of new gear. He's always pumping out something new, some new piece of gear. Right now, he's got some really cool dark green shorts. I'm a big fan of the dark green, the OD green. If you guys haven't seen, I've got an Origin gi that'll be coming out in the near future in March or April at the time of filming this, 2021. And it's a pretty gi. It's black or white gi with a navy green. What the hell is navy green? A dark green.
I'm over a green. Yeah,
navy green. It's a great one.
Let's go.
But the dark green lapel, I think it's so slick, and they did a really good job on the gi. So I'm test running it right now, and more details on that later. But again, I really like that color, and so I really dig those shorts. And again, if you want to check out any of his other designs as well, you can head on over to his website at epicrollbjj.com if you're looking for some new gear. Use a promo code Jiu-Jitsu. And again, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And on that website, you get access to a ton of content, workout programs, warm-up videos, cool-down videos, stretching videos, podcast extras with all our guests and everything else. And you'll also get, if you want to do the upgraded tier, which really isn't that much more, you get access to a bi-weekly little hangout that I do on Zoom with my Vault members and with people that are in that Patreon group, where basically we get in, we hang out, we talk, and I usually share some stories or some ideas. The past couple ones have been a lot about my diet, because that's something I've been really focused on recently. I've been really excited about the results, and so I've been showing my cutting diet, my bulking diet, the methodology used between them, and how to calculate it all, so this way they could kind of take it on for their own selves. But if you'd like to jump in with those meetings and get the information I'm sharing, but also ask a question or to chat with me, you can jump over to the Patreon. And again, just keep an eye out. I usually post the link to it usually a day or two in advance, so you can jump in with me. And then if you guys want to check out the Chew Crew, become a part of the Chew Crew email list, which I don't like calling it email list, but I don't know what else to call it. It has to be something you guys actually understand. But I refer to it jokingly, or not jokingly, but amusingly, as the Chew Crew, because we get in there and talk, and I try to answer those emails. A lot of times they get priority over other stuff. And if you guys have ever listened to my rambles, which I imagine you have because you're here, then you would like that email, because the emails are not like I talk about my products and stuff for sure, but it's a lot of times like a ramble about an idea, philosophy, or some tips or a story or something like that. That's kind of the main thing with them. And again, they're interesting. And so if you want to check them out, you can go to jiujitsu.net. You can go to the free ebook section, and you click on that, and then it'll give you the form to put in your email address. And when you do that, you'll get both an ebook on drilling, you'll get an ebook on how to create a game plan for jiu-jitsu, and I'll show you my exact game plan that I use. You'll get all that stuff included for free upon signing up. And so guys, all that stuff's out of the way. So maybe you're fast forwarding, and if you're fast forwarding and you come to this exact point, I'm done. If not, and you were listening the whole way, well, I appreciate you. And let's go and jump into the podcast, and let's talk about some stuff from the Robert Greene's book, 33 Strategies of War. So yes, I'm rereading Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War. I originally listened to it on audiobook, and I really wanted to, a number of years ago, and then I wanted to actually read it, so I bought it recently. And one of the concepts in the book is kind of waging war, because it's a book on warfare, but it takes away the principles behind it. And one of the ideas he shares in it is waging a war on yourself, right? Your own insecurities, your own BS, all that stuff. And I think that's a useful concept, because we always want to, like, when you think about these politically charged times that we're in, right? Everybody wants to go after someone else, right? They want to go out there and criticize and attack other people, when in reality, to me, this has always been, at least for a number of years, I'm like, well, what can I do? What can I change? I can't change anything else but me, right? And I can't, and if I'm trying to bring someone over to my side, I can't do that unless I leave the door open for them. So attacking them doesn't necessarily always help me, because if I leave the door open, then they can come follow me. But if I close the door and yell at them, obviously they're going to stay on the outside. Mm-hmm. But waging war on yourself, it's a useful concept. And so I think about that, that's something I think is really, it's a useful mindset to have, So for instance, we get lazy sometimes. And sometimes you need a lazy day. Like yesterday, I had a nice lazy day. I read for 4 or 5 hours. I just kind of kicked back and relaxed. I took off from everything I was doing. I didn't train yesterday. I recorded some videos beforehand, but then that was it. Then just rested for the rest of the day, because I was beat up, and my body thanked me for it today. I had a great training session. But yeah, you have to have those. But there's sometimes where you just know you're being lazy. And again, there becomes the battle. Am I going to let laziness win? Or am I going to get up and do it? Sometimes there's things we know we got to get done, so we got to do it. Sometimes we choose to take, routes that sometimes aren't the best for us, right? So for instance, I think about who I've become over the last, I would say probably 8 years. Honestly, since 2010, so probably about 10 years. The last 10 years, what I've done. Because 10 years ago, actually, I would say, let me rewind this, probably about 9 years. Because 9 years ago, my mom died. And it was at that point where I realized, first of all, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. There's no way around this. Mom died. The person that I never thought would have died. You just can't think of life without them, dead. And then thought about it, well, I need to do all the things I need to get done and all the things I want to do. I got to go do them. And then it started to make me think about this chance that I had, because now there is no safety net, right? Like I can't just go, hey mom, can I stay with you? There is no place to go, right? I'm on my own now. So then it's like, all right, I'm in this, I was working at the gym full time, and I started to dive into business and marketing books and started to read. Like, I mean, I've always was always fine with reading, but I mean, I started to reading a lot, you know, trying to take in as much as I could because I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, well, I feel like if I don't know what I'm doing, at least if I have conversations with these authors, essentially through books, and watch these lecture videos and buy these business courses, at least it's probably going to be a good idea, because that's what a lot of successful people do, right? They read, and so I'll just mimic some of the things they do. And I started hiring coaches and doing all these things to build myself up. And I thought about it was almost waging war with the past self, right? Building up something new. You know, I got to get rid of the old stuff as I'm building up new stuff. And again, through, you know, different education and different things of that nature. And then even being in moments where I was scared or nervous or whatever else. And then again, going back to it, let's get rid of that old person. I don't want to be that old person. So let's wage the war to get rid of them, and let's make room for something new. For instance, like with business deals, being kind of nervous about it. Well, yeah, you're going to be nervous, but let's go do it. Let's not miss the opportunity out of fear. Let's do what we got to do. Or, you know, insert whatever, any opportunities come by. Even with the videos, sometimes I was not like ultra comfortable in the beginning with the videos. People in the gym was like, oh, like there was a couple of people, you should do this, you should do these videos, whatever. And I started doing different videos, but I wasn't ultra comfortable, but I wanted to do them. And I thought about it. I was like, you know, I don't care. We're going to do this. And it was a fight sometimes. There'd be days where, man, I'll tell you what, man, I wanted to just go home. I just want to go home and rest. I want to relax. But I was like, nope, got to do it. Got to do what I set out to do, right? You got to continue the campaign of sorts. And so that idea of waging war with yourself, and, you know, maybe it sounds bad to someone, but here, I always go back to this. You can change. You are the master of your destiny, right? You can change anything you want to about yourself, and you can do it intentionally. Doesn't have to be unintentionally. You can change everything about yourself. 100%. I mean, like you look at guys like Conor McGregor, that character that he's created, that's not accidental. He did that intentionally, right? The way that he walks and struts, that was all purposely done. Chael Sonnen created a character, 100% intentional, right? You think of Muhammad Ali, again, you know, there's an exaggeration of personality. It's part of him, of course, but there's a character to it as well that he used. And so again, you can change things that you want to change about yourself, just like you change the way your car looks, and you can change the way that your body looks and your shape and everything else. Like for instance, when I was younger, I used to have a very thick drawl and used to say y'all. Had a lot of that Kentucky twang, like had a little bit of that stuff going, right? I used to speak like that. And then people will talk to me sometimes and you're like, you're from Kentucky, really? You don't sound like it. That's because I changed it. I didn't want to sound like that. I heard my voice one time in a video and I thought to myself, this is, you know, when I was 18. Heard myself when I was 18 years old. I hated my voice, changed it. I just didn't want to sound like that. So I became very conscious when I was speaking to make sure I didn't speak like this.
Yeah.
Made sure I didn't speak like that, you know what I'm saying? You know, so there you can change so much about yourself. And so I guess it's like things like that where you can change your habits. And, you know, they say this, like where, you know, you are who you are now and who you're going to be in the next 5 years is a direct reflection of the ideas you surround yourself, the people you surround yourself with, the habits and the actions you take on a daily basis, all that stuff. So again, it's a slow change. And it's a slow battle. It's an uphill battle, right? But you can change everything you want to about yourself. Anything you want to change it. And so again, going back to it, like when I look back at who I've become since 9 years ago, bro, it's crazy. And that's because it's been a continual, like, war, if you will, with, you know, again, the old former self making room for the new one. But that's an idea from that Robert Greene book, 33 Strategies of War. But it's just an idea that he shares very early on in the book. Yeah. But it's something that stuck with me from reading it even the first time.
How did you know, one thing I thought about was like, you are what you repeatedly do. That's a quote I've heard from somewhere.
Yeah. So it's that's an interesting quote. It's normally attributed to Aristotle, but it's not Aristotle. It was Will Durant. Will Durant was writing in his book it was a philosophy book. Will Durant was writing about Aristotle, and he basically summed up some of Aristotle's ideas, and that was one of them. So basically Aristotle explained that idea, just different words, but Will Durant sort of made it into that little pithy statement of you are what you repeatedly do.
Yeah, and it's just again talking about habit, talking about, you know, consistency. You know, like getting up, well, I want to change my body. Okay, I have to consistently get to the gym.
You got to consistently eat the right foods.
Exactly. All those things, all those combinations of things. But like talking yourself, the hardest thing for me is talking. I will talk myself out of shit. You know, sometimes I won't go with my instinct.
Yeah.
I'll second guess. I'll talk myself out. That's one thing. Like if I feel like, oh, maybe I should do this thing, I'll talk myself out of it sometimes. And then the other thing is like, you know, even like wanting to change something. Sometimes it's easier to just keep things going the way they are.
Oh, of course.
It's so uncomfortable.
It's easier.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable to make that adjustment, or, you know, that because there's a chance that you won't be able to do it. There's a chance of failure. Nobody wants to fail. No one wants to feel like a failure or feel like they're unable to accomplish their goals. Now, there's good things that come from failure. I've learned much more from failure than I have from success.
Sure. So then you tell yourself those stories. See, the stories we tell ourselves is really, really important. That's the stuff that matters, right? Because that's who you, for instance, old stories, that's who you identify yourself as. Like when you think about who you are, well, you start thinking about old stories. These stories may not even be relevant anymore, right? Because you're a different person. We're constantly changing, and the stories need updated. This is why Jiu-Jitsu is so interesting, because you're constantly getting feedback, right? So like when you do a Jiu-Jitsu roll, you may have beat Bob yesterday, but then Bob beat you today. So the story is Bob beats me, right? So Bob's ahead of me right now. So you're constantly being updated. The software in your body, in your mind, is being updated for that particular thing. We have to do the same thing with our lives, where we got to get out and do stuff and challenge ourselves and stress ourselves, because one, that's where we grow, but it's also where we find out who we are, right? Because who are you? It's a hard question to answer. Who are you? You know, again, you can say, well, my name's Eugene and I'm a physical therapist. And there's all kinds of stuff you can say, but again, it's really hard and complicated sometimes to explain who you are. But when you go out and do things, you update the software to see who you really are. Like, for instance, when I was in high school, and I was losing a bunch of weight, and I lost 30 plus pounds and had abdominal muscles pushing through my stomach, and they were showing, and I was leaner than I'd ever been as a teenager. I still felt like the fat kid, still didn't feel like it, and I didn't know that I was even athletic, right? Like I didn't really know. I still felt like that fat, unathletic kid. Then I go to wrestling, and I friggin' just start killing it. Story updates. Oh, I am different, right? Girls start talking to me now. Oh, different now. Things have changed. And so I think that a lot of times it's, we have to get those new stories, and we get those by stressing ourselves, throwing ourselves out throwing caution to the wind sometimes. And then the other thing maybe I'd ask you is, with you, whenever you did something kind of crazy, something that maybe made your gut rumble a little bit, kind of gave you a sort of feeling, how did things end up? Most of the time,
probably better than I anticipated.
Exactly, and so that's the thing. So like for me, I used to be really bad about talking myself out of things too, but then I started to tell myself different stories, and my story would be, you know what? I felt this way before about jiu-jitsu competitions, about MMA fights, and I'll insert whatever sort of situation has happened, everything from the business to girls to everything, right? I felt this way about this too, but for some reason, when I allow myself to just sort of bet on myself, when I just say, you know what, let's just try it and see what happens, things usually end up better than I expected. And even if they flop, something usually good comes out of it.
Yeah.
So like, screw it, let's just do it. You know what I mean? And so I just sort of throw myself into it. So for me, a lot of times I think of it kind of like MMA fights. MMA fights where my very first MMA fight was probably the most stressful fight I ever had, because you got to think, I'm 20 years old. What was it? Probably 9 years prior to that, I got jumped, had some serious trauma as far as mental trauma done. And, I slowly built it up through jiu-jitsu, right? Where I got used to being confrontational and everything else. And, and when I mean confrontational, being able to be okay with conflict.
Yeah. Right.
Then I'm going to fight someone, something that just seems scary to me. I'm fighting someone. The last, like one of the idea of fighting was still traumatizing a little bit, because I used to grow up as a kid. I used to just get in little scraps. Yeah. But now I'm an adult, and the last time, whatever, I got my nose broken and beat up in a fight. In high school I could just slam people, but now this dude's gonna fight me, whatever.
Well, they're skilled.
Yeah.
And they're
this guy wasn't as skilled, but I was expecting him to be skilled.
Sure.
So I get out there and I'm nervous, man. I was nervous for 2 weeks leading up to that fight. I remember calling friends up, like, you think I'm ready, whatever. My diet was like on the money. I didn't eat anything because I felt like if I ate like one bad thing, it was going to be bad. I remember one night I was just killing myself with this diet, and I ate a big spoonful of peanut butter one night, and I was so angry at myself, you know. But I go out there, and I remember that once the cage door shut, my body took over, and I beat the crap out of the guy, won super quick. And so again, I always treat things like that where, you know, I'm like, you know what? I don't know how things are going to happen, but I know that a lot of times when I like choose to just allow myself to do what I'm going to do, a lot of times I make it happen. You know, I'll figure it out. Everything's figure outable. I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. And it's been this way with everything from the business to my relationships to anything, you know, like we figure it out. Even like when you think about us in the podcast, right? Podcast a couple years ago, you and I were sitting there with like a little dinky mic on top of your friggin' like table that you're working on with people, right?
Massage table.
Yeah, on the massage table, right? Doing a podcast now. And when you think about all this equipment that you now have hooked up that you had to learn how to use, imagine if like Eugene from 2 years ago, all of a sudden you sat him down in this chair, he wouldn't even know how to use this stuff, you know, but we figure things out, you know, and it's one of those things where, you know, one of the guys that mentored me before, he said a thing where he said, people, you don't make the right decision, you make the decision right. And I think that's a good one, right? Like, you just throw yourself to it, you'll figure it out, you know. And even if you flop, it's okay. It's okay to flop. We understand jiu-jitsu is a metaphor, right? It's like, you can flop. It's okay. It's okay to get submitted. It's okay to like crash and burn, because that's how you learn. Yeah. Learning's painful, but it's one of those things. And so, you know, again, the war, and I hate to, I know some people are like, oh, it's not war. You can call it whatever you want to, a fight with yourself or a conflict with yourself. But basically, we know that all of us have that inner dialogue. Sometimes it gets us. And sometimes you get angry at yourself for not doing the things you want to do, or not doing the things you know you need to do, or taking the chances you need to take. And so I think that's where that comes into, because it's a useful idea. I think that's like served me very well, where when all of a sudden the weaker side of me wants to take over, I'll just kind of remind myself, hey, we're in a battle with this whole thing, you know, and we can't give up.
The one thing about telling yourself stories, I think I see it going two ways. You know, you can tell yourself, you convince yourself of something that you are not.
Sure. This is true.
You know, and you can do that. The way that you'll do that is by not providing a situation where you get feedback.
Right.
So if I'm by myself and I convince myself over and over that I'm, you know, worthless or whatever, I'm going to believe that shit.
Sure.
Like, I have an uncle who's kind of been a loner for a very long time, and he thinks people are watching him, and he's kind of freaked out by stuff.
Yep.
It's like, you know, from the outside situation, like, hey, nothing, you know,
yeah.
What makes you so special? Anyways, but like the feedback. So the thing with jiu-jitsu is like, for an easy example, is like, all right, I suck at jiu-jitsu. I'm going to go anyways. I suck at it. But then you hit a sweep, or you hit a submission, or whatever, or you don't get crushed that day. You're like, well, maybe I don't suck as bad. Like the same thing for you in your MMA fight. Well, shit, maybe I'm not ready, but you do it, and you're like, oh, I'm decent at this thing. You know, you watch videos, or you do videos, and then you get somebody responds to you like, hey, that's really helpful. So that's the one thing. The key is the feedback, and the feedback is what, like, I think completes that loop, completes that that story, because it adds validity. Are you or are you not? Well, what do people, or what do other circumstances tell you? Like, what do they suggest?
Right.
What's recommended?
But you don't get the feedback if you don't do. You have to do, right? And that's the thing, is like,
yes,
because that's the hard part, is the doing. People can think, like, you know, even sometimes planning. Planning can be useful, obviously, but planning can also become just another version of procrastination. Right, because planning feels good, because like when you plan, you
to
feel
be prepared for every situation.
Well, right, and when you plan, you feel like you did something, but really you didn't do shit yet. Right, you didn't do anything. You just planned. You planned to do something, but until you do something, you did nothing. Right, so sometimes people will procrastinate, where they just talk themselves out of it before it starts, and other people will just plan, and nothing ever happens, and they just kind of basically, but they feel satisfied that they did something because they planned. Really, they did nothing. And so, so again, you got to do. You know, you got to do things. And so doing is where the feedback comes from. If you don't do, you don't get feedback. Period, point blank. And so to me, like, that's one of the biggest things, is just, you got to be an executor. Don't be a collector of ideas. Be an executor of them. When you find ideas, begin to work with them, do things with them. It's better to find one idea that you implement than find 10 ideas that you just sort of sit on the shelf and go, well, that was really interesting. Use them, put them to work, be an executor.
Well, I think that being an executor can be a challenge because you feel like you could always know more or learn more.
Sure.
Oh, well, shit, am I an imposter?
But that's a trap.
Yeah. Like, I'm a physical therapist. Do I know everything? No. What if I give somebody some advice that doesn't work out for them? And sometimes that's the case. Because
when do you learn? That's when do you do the most learning, though? It's not before, it's during the doing. Because again, there's the thing where when you learn information like in the nick of time, it's like the best time. Meaning, like, when you're in it and you need that information, you absorb that stuff and you right? It's like when you learn physical therapy and you were studying it, you probably learned way more in your clinicals where you're doing these like actual hands-on experience, really getting your hands dirty, and you're putting that knowledge and turning it into skill. That's what's important. Because you can read all the damn books you want to, but to have that actual hands-on experience, that's what's so important. So again, we are a intellectual society, right? We value the books, and we value reading, and we value, well, not everybody values reading, but we value having ideas, right? But that's intellectual. It's great, but skill it doesn't become skill until that information is used.
Yeah.
Well,
it's always theory.
Right.
It's always theory. I expect this thing to work. I expect, it's going to come out this way. Or I expect a perfect circumstance. The stars have to align. Everything's got to be perfect.
Nothing's ever perfect.
And it never is. And like we were talking to Tom on the podcast, and he even talked about like the environment. He expected everything to be perfect, and it wasn't. It threw him off.
Yep. And
so like you have to, I guess, be able to account for these things that are just going to throw you off. You have to almost expect it. Expect it's not going to. Again, you can get on the other side of the coin where you're like, oh, I expect everything's going to go wrong, and you don't want to be in that mindset either.
Well, see, and this is the thing. It's just about, and that's where you got to go back to. You just got to kind of be present in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can look back and think about what what could have been, what was, or what ifs. Right? There's always the what ifs.
Yep.
Or you can be like, what's going on right now? Like, and then again, that's what matters, because that's the only thing you even have control of anyways, what is.
Yeah.
Right? But we all get focused on, this is the thing, right? Like I was talking to the guy, my videographer, Spartan, and, as a person, he's dealing with old baggage. What was? I was like, bro, you gotta let that stuff go. I was like, that's like you trying to walk down the street, but you're constantly looking back over your shoulder. Like you're looking backwards, but you're still walking forward. You don't even know where you're going, right? You're just not even present in the moment. You're thinking about all this other bullshit. Fuck that. Like what is right now? That's what matters. That old what was, you gotta get rid of it. You can know it obviously, but we get too attached to what was and what ifs and not what is. We'll think about, back blah 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 blah. We'll talk about stuff that happened in the past to try to use it to shape the future. Or we'll start to look ahead at the future and start to bull what ifs. That's where the planning and stuff comes in.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, what's going on right now? And what is the action you can take right now? What can I do right now?
There's a lot of that's impacted by the trauma. Like being, like you said, there's a traumatic experience for you when you got jumped when you were younger.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that trauma? How do you change that narrative to where like you use it to something that's positive? Do you feel like you have to accept it in a certain way, and then like, did you feel like maybe I have to have this MMA fight to prove to myself that I can move on or something? Was there something that was like this is what's going to move me past this thing? Because there's got to be something. You have to have some moment of acceptance. Number one, you have to accept the past for what it was. Obviously, not let it control your decision making moving forward.
Subconsciously, and this was all subconsciously, I didn't think about it. I didn't realize some of this stuff until I got older and started journaling. So I would tell people to journal more and really dive deep into really what are you thinking about and where does this stuff come from? Because again, to me, the experiences, they're not useful if you don't really think about them on a deep level. Like everyone's life is full of rich experiences that have like learning and lessons and everything else. But if you don't look at them, they're worthless. Right? But tucked in away in all those experiences and all that garbage you got in your experiences in your life, there's gold waiting to be plucked out of there. if you choose to. So I didn't know this at the time about journaling. I journaled back then, but I didn't journal like that. But I just had I had a calling to do it. There was something driving me towards it. I was scared. I was terrified. I mean, I'm not gonna be honest. I'm dead serious. I was terrified to fight, but I had to fight. There was just something in me that wanted to fight, and I did it. And then it was like, oh, well, I beat it.
How'd you convince yourself though? I'm sure.
Because here's what I do.
Talk yourself out of it.
So well, here's what I do. So first things first, I always have a vision of where I want to go. So I think about like, what does that look like? What does it look like for me to be a winner? Right. So in wrestling, I remember I was losing weight one summer, and I thought about, here's how it happened. I thought about what it would be like to be on the top of the podium, to have that gold medal around my neck, to be standing there, to be able to look down and see all my teammates like down below me, smiling, clapping, cheering, and for me to have my hands up, have the big cart, like the big paper bracket with my name on it as first place, right? That was there. I thought about that image every day I woke up. I also thought about all the people that told me I couldn't do stuff, right? So I always get like a negative one where I think about like people, like I told people I was going to lose weight and go to a lower weight class, and they're like, no, you're not, whatever, negative people. And I think about those people too, and I want to prove them wrong, right? I think about when I got into the business stuff. I remember people being like, you're making a bad decision, whatever, like some of my family, my dad and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to do so good at this stuff, and I'm going to show them, even with the videos. I knew people that like, sort of like, I don't know, man, this kind of seems whatever. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. So I always have something negative, but then I also have the positive, right? And I get obsessed with those things, right? Because again, and it's one of those things too, where I've done jiu-jitsu long enough to know that I can change everything I want to about myself. Just like you change your ability, your game, and everything else, I know I can change myself. So if I've got to become someone different, which we all do, right? I mean, none of us are the same person. We're always changing. 5 years ago, you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, right? We're constantly changing. So who do you want to be, right? Who do you want this person to be? So for me, it's like, well, okay, I want to become the person that does these things. Well, if I want to become the person that does these things, I got to know, like, what kind of things do those types of people do? They do these habits. These are the kind of habits that they have. Here's the kind of words that they use. They speak in this way. They do these things. They have these, they wake up at this time, all these different things. I'm like, I gotta do those things, right? Or at least what I think they are. And then again, make room for myself to become the unique person I am, but I've got to grow and again, put some direction towards it. So I always have like an idea of where I'm going. And then I also have the negative side of it where either me personally, like when I was getting ready for, I remember like part of like what used to go through my head when I was getting ready for wrestling or fighting or any of that stuff was I would remember who I was when I was 11 years old and got beat up. I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the kid that got jumped. I hated that kid because he was weak, and I became this weak young teenager who got picked on and didn't like himself. I didn't like being that person, so I'm never going to go back to that person. Dieting becomes very easy. I don't want to be that person again. I can eat very cleanly without much discipline because I don't want to be that person. When I was fighting, it was like I'm running away from that person. So again, I can live in the past and I can allow myself to be that person, or I can say, you know what, I'm going to jump and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to be this person. So even though these experiences are scary, it's better than being this. It's better than being helpless. It's better than being beat up. It's better than being, fat and out of shape and not being able to get a girlfriend or anything like that, right? So become so like about that, then I go forward.
Yeah, it's a balance too. It's like believing that you can change. Believing it's because some people get stuck in that believing that they're that person.
Don't believe you can change. Know you're going to change. There's no believe.
Well, that's the difference.
You're going to change.
There's the difference, right? So the difference is this. The difference is I believe I'm 11-year-old Chewy who's going to get beat up, or I believe I'm this wrestler or this MMA fighter that's confident and can take care of myself and be in good shape. It's what you.
But see, I didn't believe I could at the beginning.
You didn't, okay.
But it's about getting that's where the feedback comes from. Because you're not going to believe. You got to do something first, right? Like unless you have like some sort of crazy overinflated ego where you believe that you're this, that, whatever, and you haven't done anything. True confidence comes from doing. When you put yourself in the fire and you know what you could do, that's where true confidence comes from. Okay. That cool, calm, collected confidence. Because you know what you're made of, right? Just like we talked to Tom Galpin on the podcast earlier. He wins the ADCC trials in the finals of this bad back and forth match where he wins and while he's down on points in overtime. That dude knows what he's made of now, right? He wins a big tournament, in the throes of losing it. 1 minute and he's going to lose the match and he chokes the guy out. He knows what he's made of, right? He's been to a different place. And so when you challenge yourself, this is part of it. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be scared to do things, but you just jump in anyway because that's where the magic is. The magic is in the doing of those things. Because when you do them, then you get your power. That's where the power comes from. You know, it's almost like if you ever watched the movie Highlander, right? Like it's like when you get ready to do something kind of scary that makes you nervous, whatever, but when you do it, it's like cut the head off and you absorb the energy. Right? It's like, maybe that's kind of a crude analogy, but it's like every time I've done something where I was nervous, regardless of whether I won, lost, whether it was a flop or a great success, whatever, I gained power from it. I became a more powerful individual because of it. And so those things are important. So you're not going to know, especially if it's something new, you're not going to know that you got it.
Yeah.
But it's about saying like, look, I don't know that I've got it, but I'm willing to bet on myself. I'm willing to bet I can figure it out. And even if I don't figure it out, I'm going to learn something from it. So let's just do it, because, you know, more often than not, you're going to be way better than what you think you are if you just jump in and do something.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like I said, the big thing is the fear of failure, and being able to, can you pick yourself up? Can you dust yourself off? Can you still go towards that goal, or is just one failure going to, are you going to take something from it, or is that going to just,
is that going to
completely,
is that going to wreck you?
Yeah, like end your progress.
Yeah.
And like, so dealing with failures is a big thing, you know, and sometimes you have to build that, like you have to callous, like who says you have to callous your mind? Oh God, the guy that runs a lot. Oh man, he was on Joe Rogan. I can't think of it.
Cameron something?
No, not Cameron Haynes.
I don't know, but yeah, you got to callous your mind. Goggins, probably.
Yeah, David Goggins.
Yeah,
he was talking about callousing. So it's almost like through jiu-jitsu we callous ourselves in some of these, like, because we do these difficult things over, and then you're like, all right, I've been down this position before. I've been getting crushed before. How do I get out? And you get out once, and you're like, oh shit, it's possible.
Well, it's like lifting weights, right? It's like building up a muscle. So the more you do things that are uncomfortable to you, the easier it becomes. So like, you know, the first time you slap on 2 plates on the barbell and try to do a bench press, it might be heavy, right? But the more you do it, the easier it gets. Same thing. The more you do things that make you uncomfortable, the more the things that you do that are out of your comfort zone, that test you, that make you feel, oh my God, here we go, right? And the more you sort of, again, go back to that idea that you sort of wage that war in yourself and the weaknesses that you have, the more you do that, the more, like, the stronger that muscle becomes.
Yeah.
And the easier it becomes to do so, because you get so used to it. You're like, whatever.
It's not as traumatic anymore. It's not this like thing that doesn't give you this huge blow. It's like, oh, it's all right. Just brush it off. It's not like, you know, you're not devastated by it. That's kind of the main thing. It's like the little, they're like little bumps. They're not like huge hills anymore, little bumps.
So yeah, guys, check out the book. If you haven't read it before, it's a good one. It's a long one, so it's a long read, but it's a good book. And it's also on Audible too. The narration on it is pretty good. So again, Robert Greene, 33 Strategies of War. So hopefully hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, guys. So hope you enjoyed that podcast. Hope you got something from it. Again, if you want to check out that book, you can go to Amazon or wherever you buy books and get it. It's a good book. It's a good read. It's a long read, because like I said, at least it is for me. Like I don't read those kind of books and just pass through them. I read them and like chew on the ideas and like how's it, like what kind of implications does it have for me, that kind of thing. So again, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web. You can go to charlottesweb.com and get some CBD if you want to try it out and do the Jiu-Jitsu CBD challenge. That's what I'm going to call it, because they don't actually have, it's not a thing, but I just say it because it's me challenging you to try it if you want to, if you can, because again, I know there's still a lot of weird laws on like, with like testing and stuff like that for people.
Yeah. And they're going to be coming out with some other products down the line, some different products I think could be better for like if you have testing, but yeah, and we're looking on some other things, working on some, maybe even like our little favorites bundle. We'll do some stuff, but they've always had great quality. I think the difference in CBD, sometimes somebody gets low, like not high quality CBD,
well, it's not regulated.
And it's not, and so they don't get a very good quality CBD, so the effects are not there. You may get other crap in them. Their stuff is so well tested, and it's third party tested, and it's just
Well, I had one of the guys, he had tried CBD before. It was like, it kind of was just talking about, it's like, here, just try this. Because he got like some CBD at like a gas station or something.
It's crazy.
So I gave him this, I gave him some Charlotte's Web, and then he came back. He's like, hey, which one did you give me again? Because I want to buy some more. Yeah. So again, that's, when it's like anything else. When you get like a really like fine-tuned product versus like, not fine-tuned product, there's a difference. It is what it is, you know. So it's like you know, with supplements, it's especially something you put in your body.
It's high quality. You gotta have high quality.
I mean, it's
stuff.
like go to a place and you get like crappy food. Like, yeah, you go to McDonald's, you get I don't want to talk bad about McDonald's. You might like them, but I'm saying you can go to a fast food burger place.
Yeah, for sure.
And you get a cheap burger, $1 burger.
Yeah.
Like, you can't complain. It's $1. It's $1 burger. Don't complain. Like, you're hungry and you're being cheap about your food. It's $1, right? $1. But if you went to like a place that's a little bit more expensive, you might get a really good burger. A burger that's like, holy crap, that's a great burger. Like, there's a place, this is just one off the top of my head. There's a place in Atlanta we go to whenever we compete. We go to Vortex. Yeah, it's a good burger place. They may have better burger places in Atlanta. I don't know, but it was a great burger place.
You like In-N-Out Burger?
It's okay. It's good. I mean, it's good. I feel like it's like
there's a lot of hype.
It's the exclusivity of it.
Yes.
It's novelty. It's like we don't have it over here. So, oh my God, it's amazing. You know, where, you know, to people out there, like, yeah, it's an In-N-Out Burger. That's it.
Yep.
So if you want to check their stuff out, promo code Jiu-Jitsu, charlesweb.com. If you want to check out some of Matt's Jiu-Jitsu gear, if you're in the neighborhood for some gear for your training, you can go to epicrollbjj.com and you can get some gear for training, but you also have a lot of what would you say, lifestyle apparel, just clothes that have a jiu-jitsu flair to them. So again, if you're looking around for that kind of stuff, you can go to his website at epicrollbjj.com, use the promo code Chewjitsu, save 15% on your order. And then again, if you want to go to our website, well, it's not our website, but if you want to go to Patreon's website, go to patreon.com/jiu-jitsu podcast and get access to the content that we have, as well as the private little Zoom meetings we do on Sundays. Bi-weekly. You can check that out and go to the website and give that a look. And if you'd like to join the Chew crew, you can do that by going to chewjitsu.net and signing up for my email list, where I'll give you a free ebook, actually 2 free ebooks and a video that you can get access to, and it'll help you out with both drilling and for your jiu-jitsu game plan. And again, if you don't want to do any of that stuff, if all of that stuff is like, Chewy, that's way too much stuff for me to do, I don't want to sign up for the email list. I don't want to do the Charlotte's Web. I don't want Epic Roll. I don't want to do any of that. You could go to YouTube, and we have a YouTube page, YouTube channel for the podcast, and we're trying to get to 1,000, which would be helpful. So that's the goal. So if you want to help us be part of 1,000, you can do that. And if you throw a review on any place that has reviews, like iTunes, for instance, if you throw up a review, send us a screenshot of the review to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast at gmail.com, and we'll do a shout out for you. You'll get to hear your name spoken
word
on
name
the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I need to start speaking with a more bassy voice.
It's good. Your voice is fine, Chewy. You have to change your voice.
Well, welcome.
It's doing okay.
Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I'm here with you. Like, make it sound like real something.
No.
Yeah. And today's, cause I bet the guests would be creeped out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine if we had, and today, hey, it's so good to have you on there.
What are you wearing? What kind of podcast is this?
Okay.
It's madness.
This is the Jiu-Jitsu After Dark.
Oh, you know what we need? If you know that reference, who Chewy's talking about.
I want to bring him back on the podcast. I just want to see what he's going to do.
Like, you guys know who we're talking about. We're not going to tell you.
Because I remember when we had him on the podcast the first time, he's sitting there, and I remember when he came in, I was like,
he's going to sit right there in that chair.
I knew he was going to do something. I was like, every time he does it, I knew he was going to do something.
On Grandma's table of all places, Adam.
So he comes.
I just gave it away.
He did. I was like, you gave it away.
That's all right.
I almost did a second ago. But he comes in, and he's got like his little backpack, and I was like, oh my God, he's got something up his sleeve.
Why does Adam have a backpack?
Why does he have a backpack for a podcast? And then in the middle of the podcast, he pulls out Perrier water, shaving cream, and starts shaving his head.
Only the best.
It was a live feed at that. It was live feed. So it was live. So he's shaving his head. It made sense. It's Adam, and
we just went along with it.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, I knew he was going to do something off the wall. Adam, like anytime. Adam has a thing, like he's so like to meet him sometimes he's very kind of quiet to himself.
He's always
quiet. But then when you chip away at him, there's this really silly side to him that comes out. Even if you come into one of his classes, he's not I've never seen a class like his. He cranks up the 80s music, and he's like, he's not walking around checking on people with their instructions. He's dancing. He's like dancing around with people. I mean, like, he's just having a good time. And so,
by the way, the instruction's great.
Oh, the instruction's
Adam's
great.
awesome.
Oh, there's been several times I'll go to his class and I'll learn something.
Yeah.
New. So I would not let him do it if the instruction was bad. The instruction's great.
Yeah.
And people come to his class and have a blast.
Yeah, it's fun.
But that's just him. He's just a character.
It's just that atmosphere is kind of like, where everybody trains hard, but they have fun.
Yeah. So, but anyway, guys, that was the podcast. Hope you guys had a good time with us today, and thank you guys for joining us as always. We'll talk to you next week.